in Facebook and at YouTube, and I compliment all of you. This is for Coaches Portugal a new experience, not having his coach congress alive as usual every 2 years. But with the pandemic, this was the way that we could do again our congress, but with video conference. First of all, of course, I would like to thank everybody who registered. As you know, even if you cannot be here all the day, we will have later everything concerning our congress. You can see it by podcast, so this is a possibility to see the next days or to continue to see if something you didn't have time to see. Formally, I would like to thank Odivelas. In the year 2020, Odivelas is City of Sport in Portugal. Our congress should be in Odivelas, not being live, it being by video conference, but of course they stay together with us, and we are very proud to having this activity together with the City of Sport. The vice mayor, Mr. Paulo Serra, could be here today by video conference, but he also sends compliments to everybody. He is also very proud to having this congress during these 2 days together with Coaches Portugal. Of course, we also thank ASES Europe and ASES Portugal, our partner from the city, European City of Sports. They are always with us when we have our organization of our congresses. And at last but not at least, I would like to thank all our lecturers from today and of course from tomorrow. Again, it would be interesting to have them live, but I'm pretty sure that maybe next year during our World Congress, we will have this possibility that everybody can meet everybody in live. But thank you for being here by video conference, Henry, Sergio, Lorraine. Later you will have the opportunity to speak together, but for now, I would like to thank you for being here. I would like now to give some information to our coaches who are listening here in Zoom. You will have the possibility through our chat to put some questions. I will select the questions and I will make the questions to our lectures. Of course, I will not have the possibility maybe to put all the questions. I will try to put as many as possible. Please, if you have some questions, only questions concerning the topic that today Henry, Lorraine, and later at the round table, also with me and Sergio, about what we are speaking today. As you know, today the focus will be a lot about coach education and the different approach from the different countries and from the different organizations. So this is the topic, and you will help me if you do very small questions, because this will give me more time to interact with our guests. Of course, people who are listening at Facebook or through YouTube, there will be not the possibility to make or to put some questions to our lectures, but I'm pretty sure because it's being live, you will have the opportunity to hear a lot about these topics, and I hope you will like it. So I'm almost finishing my open ceremony. This is always important for me as president of Coaches Portugal, of course, to thank my staff for this organization, Carolina, Claudia, and Marco for the terrific job they did this last week so that we could have our Congress. And of course, my colleagues from board, Teresa, Marta, Maio, and Carlos, for always all the support. And of course, they are also here with me, not physical, but by distance. And it's for me, of course, an honor to have people like my board and like my staff during the organization of this coaching congress. During the breaks, you will get some information about other activities. You can look right and left from my screen and you will see that in 1 year we will have a big moment for Portugal, but during the break and at the end of the session, I will then give some information and you will get some information concerning this. So this is what I have to say. So I will make now the presentation of our first lecture, Henry Utku, and I would kindly ask my organization to put maybe the image and sound from Henry, please. Okay, hello, Henry.
Hello, hey guys. I'm just gonna quickly share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
I will take 10 seconds to make your presentation, and can you start? We will already spoke at the backstage, but now more formally, I would like Henry, thank you very much for being here, for being with us. I know, I'm pretty sure you would prefer to be here physically in Portugal and in Odivelas for this Congress, but again, of course, thank you for being here. For us, of course, it's a great pleasure. For our coaches who are listening to Henry and who don't yet knows Henry is CNO and he has in charge the basketball operations and events at National Basketball Association, NBA, and he will have a presentation concerning the social impact of coaching. And of course, he will take in concern all the experience that he has, not only in his job now, but also in the past as a coach and as a person who almost all his life was connected with sport. So Henry, I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Pedro. And like you said, it's great to be a part of this, and I definitely prefer to be in Portugal right now for this, but you know, I saw you guys have got 2021, so excited to see, you know, once we're out of this current situation. So just quickly a little bit about me, my background. So I work for the NBA, the National Basketball Association, within our basketball operations team, and we really focus on a lot of things across Europe, Middle East. But what I'm going to give you guys an overview is really our junior NBA programs and how that links into the coaching piece and this seminar. So we have multiple programs, really a full pyramid of activities from grassroots all the way up to our elite pyramid. And, you know, we start right from beginners and we like to see a big development. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, the locations, we have programs. Some of you may already know who are in Portugal, the Junior NBA League program, which is there. We have them multiple and 80 leagues actually across Europe and Middle East, so across 20 countries. So we're really excited about the expansion of that, and we've seen the development of the program over the last 5 years. It's been a huge positive, and we've had a lot of great feedback from our federations who we work closely with. So we also work closely on our Train the Trainer program that's focused on developing coaches. So when we run our programs in certain countries, we always like to help and support, develop new coaches, current coaches, and even elite coaches, and provide opportunities that go on further up our pyramid to all of them. So, you know, another exciting opportunity and how it links very well into this seminar. And then the final piece is we hold elite camps across Europe actually globally as well. As you may have heard of it, part of our Basketball Without Borders. But again, really looking at coaches and how they are important. And when we go through our selection process, working closely with our federations, I'll talk a little bit about how that is important when it comes to the selection process. So why do we need skilled coaches? Specifically in our junior NBA is a key piece. As everybody has seen, there's a huge evolvement of sport been going on for the last few years. And that starts with access. You know, in a lot of countries in Europe, especially, a lot more, you have so many opportunities to play different sports. So it's important to be able to engage with those players and making sure it's fun, interactive, and an opportunity where they want to come back, right? Involvement has come in the type and the way people are playing the sport now, and that's coming down to coaching. So how coaches are running sessions, how coaches' philosophies are included is a big piece on what we're seeing and the change in sport. You know, a few years ago, you wouldn't have seen so many NBA teams shooting the ball, but now it's a new tradition over the last few years, and there's multiple players, and teams are changing how they play because of that. When just talking about engagement, the second point, we really try and set when we work with coaches across our junior NBA programs or basketball schools, it's always about, when it's an introduction to the game, ensuring we provide small goals, making sure they're achievable. So there's not that big border of not being able to ever have success coming out of a practice or a session. And I keep talking about, obviously, for beginners, people want to come home and actually say to their parents, you know, I was able to dribble with my left hand, dribble with my right hand, or make a basket, which is, in the end, becomes very, you know, a simple goal for them. So they're just going on the third piece. You know, it's about having the right coach can actually impact how you unlock players' potential. You know, we've seen with multiple elite camps that we run that sometimes the players that are the best at that time, at that level, doesn't necessarily mean in the future they're actually going to be the leading player. And actually we've seen that quite a bit, where players don't even make an all-star team, but in 5-6 years, the development and the way they've worked with their coaches, they've actually gone on to be NBA all-star players. So it's interesting to see, and making sure you understand your players to ensure that you can really go and maximize their potential. So then, just in terms of other possibilities, you know, we talk about the importance of coaching, and we want to develop players. It's not always about ensuring you're going to make the next NBA player. You know, we like to see and make sure we grow participation, but also we give them opportunities in sport. And I'm obviously relating specifically just to basketball, but there's so many roles within a basketball game. So coaching is one piece, giving your players opportunities to be able to coach back, coach themselves, ask them maybe, what could you have done better in that situation? How would you find yourself? How would you progress? And then also even letting young players come back and coach part of the session, making sure they fully understand what you're teaching them to go forward. So, I mean, I even have on my notes, you know, sometimes when we run our session, they have an opportunity to be referees, table officials. We actually just had a large event in Paris. It was our Paris game in January, and we brought in a junior NBA reporters. Now that's totally separate and off court, but it gives them that confidence to be able to try something new, which in the future is important as a person to go on and mature. So, you know, what are the importance of being a coach? So just quickly, the key attributes which we really focus on when we go looking into these programs. Like I said, we have multiple different activities that we look at the bottom, the bottom pictures were actually some of our junior MBA elite programs. So where we go through and we pick some of our coaches. We actually had a coach from Portugal last year, Freddie, who came to Orlando with us. And, it's about recognizing what can develop. And I'm not saying any is right or wrong, because actually some philosophies work for some players and some don't. So like I said on the first slide, you have to recognize the potential with those players you're working with. So just talking about philosophies, we look at how coaches coach, but we also want to understand how they relate and what their coaching style is. There's a lot of focus on gameplay now in the modern times, which is great to see. Even in beginners, in very early stages, it's early on, you see players going through making decision-making opportunities within gameplay. But obviously, you cannot do that without ensuring you have met the fundamentals. So it depends on the coaching style and how you provide that information. So just on the second piece, the interaction and feedback, we've all seen those coaches who are the ones that are shouting instructions constantly. I've had coaches like that, and there's actually, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like I said, I'm not saying one is right or wrong, but I always say for myself as a player, when I used to play, if you continuously hear shouting, it just becomes the same sound, and it's not something that you respond to. Whereas if it's small, short, key information, then it allows players to really take it in. Okay, I understand now. Move your right foot. All right, that was simple, and that helps a player move on. Because in a game when there's so much going on, you can't be there having 300 words told to you to try and do something. And remember, from a young age, when I focus on our junior MBA programs, there's only so much information kids can take in. So it's important you get that right dialogue with that player. We see a lot of great job, and I think that's great. Good positive reinforcement, but then also it's good to know what the player is doing. What did he do right? Hey, good way to jump off your right foot when doing a layup, or making sure that they're like, okay, now I know what was a good job. So we really look out for that, and that's an important part about your feedback and interaction. And I touched on it before on the last slide, but giving the players an opportunity to coach, that's an ability to develop social skills. Bringing that confidence to a player. Like I said, they might not go on and be any kind of LeBron James or Steph Curry, but they've had that ability and they've been able to mature themselves throughout that. So even question asking them what they think they could do better. That only helps a player, even from a young age, develop and come into themselves as a player. But obviously, a key piece of this is making sure it's fun and enjoyable. Just because, going back to the early stages, and I can see a lot of coaches on this program, but I don't know, across multiple sports, and I feel like this goes out to you all. But if it's not fun and enjoyable from the beginning, there's many other sports and other good coaches out there who will grab those athletes and bring them on. So it is very important to ensure that you find that pace within the session. And then just the final piece on skilled coaches is really the education and self-evaluation. How many of you are going out and self-evaluating yourself, recording yourself as a coach and watching it back? It's so uncomfortable to do. As part of our program, one of our bosses will always watch our sessions and feedback on how we're doing in coaching. And watching yourself back is never nice, but it's so easy to pinpoint things you think, oh, I actually probably could have done something there. And I can actually see my whole team, their reaction, how they felt about it, and how it actually worked. So that is important when you're coming on as a coach. And developing yourself in online. At this point, I say online just because we're not present and we're at home, so there's opportunities. There's hundreds of videos out there, and looking at coaching clinic videos to see, I like his style. I don't have to be like that coach, but I can tweak that, and that could be something I want to do. And then I could watch another video, and that could be another opportunity that I look to bring in, and I build my own philosophy, like I talked about at the beginning. So quickly, just in summary, like I said on the second slide, the trends are changing. Even now, I didn't expect to be really talking about the pandemic and really taking this seminar from my kitchen, but we've had to adjust. We always talk about pivoting within our role. We had to pivot and make a change of direction. So, and people are finding ways to work. And for you coaches, how many of you are running sessions online now, like we are doing here? It's a good opportunity to keep them engaged and try and educate them, sending them game film for them to develop themselves and try and learn how to improve in the future. So, and I just say, in wrapping it up, keep doing what you're doing. We love to see coaches passionate about what they're doing, and we need more coaches for sure, because that's how sport's going to continue to grow. So just in closing, I just want to say thank you, and hopefully, this is a weird way of presenting, but I'll be able to see you guys in person at some point, which would be a great opportunity. And I think, Pedro, we have some Q&A.
Okay. Okay, Henry, thank you very much for your presentations. Maybe I would start to make a starting question concerning social skills. So, in your opinion, concerning what is happening all around the world, this is obviously affecting coaches and players because of the virus. In your opinion, what is still the practice can't start and the games can't start? How should the coach react concerning this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough time, right, for everybody. And I believe that now that everybody has time, it's kind of weird for us as an organization as well. We're at home or working, and you kind of have to slow down and you start to look at everything that's happening. You have an opportunity to see all the opportunities that you can improve or things that need doing. So that's similar to coaching and being a player. Coaches can try and slow things down. They're not in a rush to play on every Saturday, Sunday.
Hi.
They haven't got a game upcoming. So why not take a step back and kind of look at how their team have been performing? What could you change? What opportunity could you take on yourself to learn and progress? And then when you're interacting with your players, it's another great opportunity to try and educate them on, this. If there's a player with a weakness on a right side, it's a great opportunity for them to go and work on that and try and develop, their right side or strengthen their leg. It's again watching back their film. It's always good to watch film back or players play, give them opportunities to understand and learn how they can watch it, because we have time, right? There's a lot of time. And actually, one positive thing I love to see a lot of is transferable skills. So trying something new, go out, and if you're a basketball player, there's so many sports and movements, and I know there's multiple coaches from different sports on here, but you can actually transfer skills from soccer from football to basketball, and they're all from a young age, those kind of movements, sprinting to changing direction to landing are all key pieces of the same sport. So there's no harm in trying something new getting your body the opportunity to learn.
Okay, I have here two interesting questions. One is a socially coaching or a competitive coaching. Where is the frontier on that?
Sorry, say that again.
Where is the frontier between a social coaching or a competitive coaching? So where is the frontier between there? Can we speak about two different coaches? Do they interact each other as a person?
No, definitely. And that's a good question because, within our pyramid, under junior MBA, we have our grassroots piece, which is very social focused and introductory. And as you move up the period, you get to the elite piece, which, you have to change your style and you have to change as you move up within the pyramid, you start to change your interaction with players, you start to change the amount of practice. Obviously, the sessions, they also improve. But there's no, even within competitive basketball, even now, you see it's great to give that opportunity for players at competitive level, elite players, to come back and be able to socially mature and develop. And there is other ways you can do that to a higher standard. I think from a young age, say socially an introduction to basketball, you may not start so intense by questioning them or making them coach the session because they're very new to it, right? But then at an elite stand, you start to put more emphasis and more responsibility on a player. So you can say, as a top team, you pick one player at the end of the session and you ask them to make coach one part of what they thought was wrong within the last game. What is an opportunity to improve? And actually, one of my favorite coaches is Don Showalter from USAB, I just love watching him. If anyone gets an opportunity, his coaching clinics are amazing. But he brings his team in a circle and he asks them to critique one thing on a player to their right or left. And that's just amazing to be able to do that and play it at such a high standard at the beginning. He said they struggle to be able to give that feedback. And then, as they develop, it's a social interaction, it's a social maturity that they build.
Okay, we have some more questions now. One is about how should the coach, concerning the skills you presented, what should he do about the drop-off of the players? How should he deal with drop-off?
You mean by the players that lose, the drop-off in talent?
Yes.
So just going back to the skills piece. I mean, in terms, you're always going to have players that expand and go higher and higher. I mean, actually, I was watching. I don't know how many of you guys, I'm sure, watching the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, and he's at the top, right? He's at the top of the top. But he talks about how he wants to bring those ones, I wouldn't say that are dropping off, but are within the team that he feels he can bring up. And, and that's a good opportunity for coaches to really give that responsibility, to try and challenge them. And to help and to try and develop drop-off. I don't want to use that term, but, players that maybe aren't at the highest level, you find other ways that they can support the team. You have a team, they might be really strong on defense. Okay, they might not be the best player, the best shooter, but there's opportunities for them to develop. And I keep relating to basketball, so I apologize, but
no, it's okay. It's a concrete examples. We have here more questions. One at the beginning. I believe this is a very important questions today. It's about the impact from the parents who want to coach the coach, so they try to influence, the relation between the coach and parents. This is a problem not only in one sport, in many sports, I would say more maybe in team sports, but I know that also in track and field and gymnastics and so on, it's growing up. it's gearing up. And how should the coach deal with this? More courses? Should the club interact? You can give many examples.
No, for sure. That's a really good question. I mean, when we run camps, we always have the problem of, not problem, but we always have the interaction with parents. And number one, we never let them down on court. The parents always sit in the stands and make sure, they're not down on court giving instructions or taking any kind of lead that they are the coach. And the second piece is, a lot of the time, the players or the children of the parents, they don't want the influence of their parents being involved. And a lot of the questions come usually from parents is, how much playing time or how involved they are. But when it comes to if a parent wants to coach their child and it doesn't fit within the philosophy of the coach, maybe the coach should, there's opportunities. They maybe need to find another team that they think that's within that philosophy of what they're trying to portray. But as a coach, it's important for yourself to take the lead and really, you cannot be influenced by parents saying, I think you should be playing this way or that way. As a coach, you can only develop your own philosophy, right? Your own way of coaching, because as soon as you start listening to other people, it's not your own. And,
but do you think, sorry to interrupt you, do you think, for instance, that the regulations and the rules from the clubs should also help the coach, not being he alone to take any kind of measures concerning the parents, but the coordinator, a director, for your experience, how could we improve this?
Yeah, it needs to start from the top. So, it needs to be a whole emphasis across your club. So, I would say the chairman or whoever they need to install the fact that the coach is the leader of the team. There's no parent influence or whatsoever, because if everybody doesn't buy in and one part of your club is allowing parents to interfere, then it just becomes jumbled, right? You need to have everyone buying into the same philosophy as your club.
Okay, now we are getting a lot of questions, so I will try to give you all. One is, should the coach have his own training and game methodology, or should he follow what the club says?
Okay, I would say it depends when you sign up for a club, and I can't really give you the right or wrong answer to this. But it depends, when you take a job and the coach says to you, the team says to you, I want you to play this way. You got to be interested in that. As a coach, I would suggest, make sure that's what you buy into as well. Again, I go back to The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. Phil Jackson, when he was the assistant coach at the Chicago Bulls, he was learning the triangle offense, and that was something the team kind of talked to him about playing. And then he took it on and he took it in his stride. And then that was really his, they always talk about Phil Jackson, the triangle offense now. So it just depends on, your interest, make sure, don't go, it depends on the opportunity, but don't that you have, and you want to get into coaching some way, but don't just take a job because you think you want it. Make sure you buy into what they're trying to sell you and what they want you to coach. But if you have the opportunity to install your own methodology, then great. Take it and fly with it.
Okay. So the other question is how to have the best commitment from the players to training.
How to have the best commitment from you got to have your team to buy in. They got to buy into your session. They got to buy into your coaching, and you got to have that good relationship. I talked about that interaction feedback, and and if you gain that respect, then you're going to have that buy-in, and you're going to have that intensity in training because they understand why they're doing it. They want to get better for reasons. It means you have the right team that you want to work with.
Okay, Henry, before answering now, could you stop sharing your so your face is bigger?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Here we go. There I am.
Okay, good.
Kitchen.
Thank you. At your kitchen, yes. The other question here, you already spoke about this, but you can understand many of the coach has this doubt. And the question is, how can a coach motivate his athletes in quarantine time to work out at home? And the second question, maybe this is more difficult, and what workouts should they do? Because this depends on the sport. But maybe the first question, I think it is also concerned with commitment, as you understand. How you can motivate people, say, okay, you are at home, but you still should continue. What is your
opinion? No, it's a good question. You know what? Because you see a lot of, I mean, it's going on for a long time, right? Quarantine has been going on for a while. But I tell you, you know, it is going to end, and we all will find a way out of this for sure. So the coach really needs to start setting maybe small goals, opportunities, you know what I'm saying? Start outlining what they see the future can hold. I mean, there's coaches from around the world on here, and everyone's got different lockdown situations and opening dates. And, you know, I'm in the UK right now, but if, you know, in June 1st, we're allowed to go outside and play in a small group, for example, if that's the case, you know, you should be leading up to, hey, are you guys prepared for June 1st when you guys can come back? Make sure you're gearing yourself up. You've provided yourself enough training at home that when you come back, you're still ready to play. So it's about, I kind of touched on it in my presentation, but small goals because, you know, this feels like years, and I feel like I've been at home for a long time, but, you know, the kids in the same situation are probably feeling like it's decades. You know, and you want that social interaction with your friends, so you need to start setting out some goals of when you'll be back, opportunities, and even and my last one, I know I've dragged on with this, but giving them small competition, you know, finding opportunities where, okay, hey guys, I want you to do this drill, film yourself and send it in, and we'll be able to tell you the winner or playback. Start setting different ways of having competition. And, you know, we have to find that new way of doing that from home.
Okay. I have now a challenge question to you. Well, 2 or 3 that I think are very interesting. This one is, and I'm quoting, you talked about the TV series The Last Dance. In more than one episode, we saw the personality of Michael Jordan. Do you consider that the biggest test to Phil Jackson was dealing not only the personality, but also the ego of the greatest player in basketball history?
That's a hard one. I mean, I actually don't know in depth enough. I mean, I don't know enough to what extent, you know, what Phil had to manage. I will say he did an unbelievable job, as you can see, you know, bringing all those talented athletes together, the team he had. And, you know, as you see from, you know, Michael Jordan's, his mentality, it won them a lot of championships. So, you know, but, you know, I can't really comment because I don't know enough about how much Phil was, you know, what he was doing. I'd love to know. So if you guys find out, you can tell me.
Okay. The other question is, okay, I hope I'm not losing. Okay. One is, what do you think about the coach who gives a lot of feedback and interventions, and the other who is more restrained? In your opinion, who will have more gains with the young athletes?
Yeah. No, so, and I touched on it earlier, it depends on the players you're coaching it. So, you know, it depends how they respond to certain things. So the coach that, you know, continues to emphasize, continues to give too much instructions, you know, it can be overboard. But then again, the person that gives too little sometimes might be not enough. So as a coach, you need to recognize the team you have, the players you have, what they respond to. Everybody's different. You know, I respond to, I respond well to quiet criticism. You know, if someone's shouting at me, I probably won't do as well. So as a coach, you need to, and I'm going back to last dance again because I'm obsessed with it at the moment. But Phil, he managed every single player differently, and I know that's the elite. But even when you go to coaching small, younger, first-time groups, you have to recognize that and see and understand. It will take time. Of course, it's going to take time because you've got to get to know the players. But that is the way I really see it. The benefit is learning, and you will maybe one person just needs reinforcement continuously, and they need to understand and hear it, and maybe one can only take in a small amount of information, and sometimes that is myself. So you're just giving those small points. Hey, right foot, and that's it, and then you develop that.
Okay. There are now two different group of questions. One is, I think, more connected with your presentation. The other also, but this is, I think, very interesting. And it's connected, I think, with your answer now. Should the coach involve more in the problems of the players? Or there should be a distance. You understand, sometimes, one thing is one coach who is very active, as you now said, he's giving a lot of media and so on during the practice. But the other thing is, when we are speaking about young players, 15, 16 years old, they have problems with girlfriends, girl boys, school, parents. Where should be, I say, the frontier of the involvement of the coach with the players, or do you think this depends on the club, on the context, on the culture of the country?
Yeah, no, it totally depends, and personal problems are personal problems. So I prefer that probably as a coach they keep them to themselves. But as a coach, you are a mentor, right? You're going to have players come to you with things you would have never thought of. So it's about definitely don't share them with the team. Don't bring them, but help them. You can find ways of helping them to deal with certain situations, because as you said, teenagers, we all know that with teenagers that they're going to have some issues in life and worries along the line. So it's about helping to deal with them. And actually through sport, the great piece about being through sport is so that it helps them develop socially and builds confidence, which along the line actually means that they might be able to go on and help themselves.
Okay, here is more someone who wants more information about, you said, about coaching philosophy, and I'm quoting: "Thanks for the interesting presentation, Henry. You already talked a bit about coaching philosophy, but could you give one or two examples that marked you on this regard from your personal experience that would illustrate what you consider a good or not so good approach?"
Yeah, I never want to I never want to say what's not a good approach. I haven't been a coach long enough to say to people what's not working and what's and then to argue that as well. You've seen some of the coaching philosophies actually, they work. In some aspects, you've seen teams where they've gone on and done well under certain coaching styles. I think what studies show is from a young age, a coaching philosophy not being so aggressive, not shouting at them, continuous instructions, having more of a relaxed environment. I actually, one philosophy, it was more of he was a former colleague of mine, and his philosophy was very much learn through playing games. Everything was through fun kinds of games, even from beginners. So first time you hold a ball, everything was decision making. And they were starting to learn. Now that actually I saw huge improvement in the kids that he was coaching. But then some people want to really break it down and go through each individual fundamental. And like I said, I don't feel like I can comment on which is the best or which is the worst, but there's lots of philosophies out there. But I touched on it, but you got to find your own, and you'll definitely see it with experience and time, and you'll start to see what philosophy fits you. Because I'm not even I couldn't even be the shouting kind that's like, hey, stop doing that, do this, because that's just not in my personality. So that just eliminates that piece from me, you know. But I could be, I like to be calm. I like to be able to give short instructions. We had a coach before who had a super low voice, and what actually naturally happened was kids, they stopped talking, because if they didn't, they couldn't hear what the coach was saying, and it worked so well for him, and it was great to see. But for me, you know, because the players then wouldn't just work within my personality.
Okay. Okay, I have here a very interesting out-of-the-box question that I'm pretty sure you want to answer it, but I go first to the other that has to do with, I would say, with my country, and yeah, maybe some countries has the same problem, and you could help. The question is how should be the relation between school, you know, a primary school, basic school. We are not speaking about college or university, high school, well, basic primary, I would say, or basic school, and the clubs. You have an 8-year-old player, a 10-year-old player. In Portugal, as you know, we have the two systems. You know, we have the system outside the school, where you have a club, and you have the school clubs, and they don't play each other. So, in your opinion, how should be the relation? Should the players only be at school? Should they be at the clubs? Should they work together? From your experience, also from other countries, even from the USA, what do you think there should be the best approach or a suggestion, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal approach would be the school and the club work together, you know, and if you got on the same board of teaching the players the same thing, introducing the sport, that would be the ideal situation. We know there's never an ideal. Well, everywhere there's no ideal always. So when there's not, you know, I think it's just about ensuring that, you know, club, but that it's actually, and sometimes I will go against. Sometimes it's good to learn different things from the players, but it is good to be on the same, I say, on the same objective of those players. But yeah, no, definitely, if a club and a school could work together. And I have seen it before, where, you know, a club coach is actually part of the school, and they work in a school, and that's a great situation, because you're getting more time with the player, but you're also getting to put in what you're doing on the weekends or in the evenings during school time as well. So it's great to see. But, you know, in the US, they have you play a lot more in school, and then you have some club stuff happening. In Europe, it's very club focused, and there's a large difference in standard, you know, versus school and clubs. So it's, you know, you got to work with it, but if you can build that relationships are always, you know, amazing to have in all sports. There's no point making any negative relationships.
Okay. I have a lot of more questions, but we are coming to the end, so we have 6 minutes. Maybe I cannot put all the questions, but this one I definitely must put it, because I think it is very interesting. It is a question out of the box, but it's not a problem question. It's quite interesting that I will make a small resume, because the question is big. In the past, it was almost only American players played at USA. Today, we have players from all around the world. When do you think will it be possible that European coaches can coach at NBA, or maybe from other sides of the world? As I know that some assistant coaches, not so important coaches, are from other countries, but you know, the names and the visibility that we have, it's like in football, as you know, today many Portuguese coaches are all around the world. But what do you think about this? What is missing, or what will be, in your opinion, because it's mainly your opinion, the evolution of this?
Yeah, no, definitely. Good question. I mean, we have around 108 international players, which is amazing as part of the NBA, and that's just growing, and that's grown, you know, that's grown over time, and that's just been the development of players, and that's great to see. So, in terms of the coaching piece, you know, we do have actually a lot of international coaches as part of the NBA teams. You know, you can look along the NBA team rosters, and you can see lots of international coaches, even strength and conditioning coaches, physios. There's a broad range. But is there, in the future, is there going to be more? I think so. I want to say over time, and I'm biased because I work in our Europe office. This past year, we had MVP of the league was from Greece. We had the Rookie of the Year was from Slovenia. So that took, it takes time, and I think there's going to be. We'll see more coaches coming in as well. And I touched on it earlier, how the game has changed in terms of how the game is played, and we'll see that as it comes on. And European coaches are so more accustomed to the game than they used to be because there's so much more opportunity. And we're in the now, and we're in 2020, which gives us so much more opportunities and awareness of what's going on. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's happening. And there's a lot of European coaches in the US, even in college as well. Majority, a lot of them.
Okay, I will put here two questions in one. The first question is how to coach a player that he thinks that he knows everything, and the other question, it has to do with this, is how to give a feedback to a top player like Michael Jordan, not because of his ego, but because he's so a high level. How we can deal with this? So one is doesn't want to hear the coach. The other is a very good top player. He can hear the coach, but how does the coach react and act with him?
Yeah, no, I mean, you got to have that interaction with the player, and that's a key piece on which we look at, and being able to find that ability to provide feedback. Every player. You've got to be able to provide some kind of feedback. And we know there's players out there that they don't, I've seen it, I've coached sessions, I've coached beginners, and they think they're they're already the Michael Jordan. So it's about being able to bring them in and, highlight, just, try and question them. Hey, what could you have done better there? Okay, no, nothing, it was perfect. But then pinpoint where it could have been better. And again, if you've got the Michael Jordans in your team, bring them, like we touched on earlier, to come back and talk, try and coach the other players in the team, because that's going to develop them. Even just coaching, and I know a lot of you guys will see it, is you start to learn stuff and realize it might not be you doing the drill, but you may realize, oh, I kind of saw what he was doing there. Okay, that actually would be kind of interesting for me. And again, that will improve them in a social impact as well.
Okay. Thank you. I think we have 2 minutes left, so this is almost like the last quarter in NBA where have everything happens.
Right.
There are a lot of questions here that will not be possible. There was one question here, also a very big question, and this will be the last question. When you have not so much conditions, and the person here write it, if I only have during 3 months a full hall for me to playing basketball, but in the other months I have very few conditions and I have not a lot of money, how could I still motivate my players even when my facilities are not so good?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, look at a lot of our NBA players and where they started. Look at the facilities, and it starts with the training and the amount of training you can do. If you have the facility, they might not be the highest standard, might be outdoors, it might be bad weather, but there's an opportunity there. They still have the opportunity, as long as you've got, I'm speaking in basketball sense, or soccer, you have the hoops or you have the goals. We've seen it. And even now, we asked, a lot of people ask this question, how we can develop players during this isolation period. And they're working without hoops. Some kids we're speaking to, they're working without balls. So we're just trying to find those aspects that we can help them improve. And there's always you can always try and find the positive out of it. I think if you've got the hall, maybe small, it might not be the highest of facilities, use it to the best you can. Try and use that session. You see that as a positive, that you have the opportunity to do so.
Okay, Henry, thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. There are still a lot of questions. People are liking your everything you are saying, and everybody is saying that you are doing a great lecture and a good job. So I'm trying to give you as much as feedback as I can.
No, that's great. Thank you. Just from my side, thank you, everyone. And like I said, hopefully we'll see you in person at some time at the next one. It's been a good experience. So thank you.
Okay, Henry, from my side, and for Coaching Portugal, of course, thank you very much for being here. It was a pleasure. I'm pretty sure we could stay here 2 or 3 more hours speaking about your experience and your ideas. And I believe that for the coaches, this was a great experience. So we are finished. Now I'm speaking for all coaches. We are finishing now our first lecture. We will start in 10 seconds our break. During these 10 minutes, you will have access to our video concerning the Global Coaches Conference in Lisbon in 2021. So you can stay and you can watch, or you can drink some water. And at 5:05, we start with Lorraine. Okay, see you soon. Bye, Henry.
Status booster, go. GNC, go.
Conquer Lisbon 2021 with a coaching spirit.
Status booster, go. GNC, go. Start throttle up.
Okay, so we are back. Now our distance, it's a little longer because now we are in Canada with Lorraine. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello.
So with Henry, it was very exciting, very intense. NBA is intense. And I'm pretty sure it was also nice for you and for all of us to hear him. Henry is always very enthusiastic with his lectures and with his answering. Okay, so hello everybody again. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. I think for Lorraine, it's still good morning, almost lunch hour. So Lorraine is our next guest. Lorraine is CEO of Coaching Association of Canada. And of course, I must tell all the coaches who are hearing us, we know that Lorraine is a very important woman in sport all around the world. I know that you don't like that we speak about this, but we still need to emphasize in our planet the importance and the roles of important women who are doing everything for the sport. So thank you for also for that, and of course thank you for being here with us. I give you the floor so you can start your presentation about your education programs in your country. Thank you, Lorraine.
Okay. So let me share my screen here. Can you see that, Pedro? Perfect. Okay, hello everybody. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much for hosting today, Pedro and Carolina, for inviting me. I really appreciate listening to Henry and from hearing from all of you, and I look forward to someday being in person. But that's what sport is for. We're resilient, and that's what we do in our coaching and our coaching strategies is we build people who can pivot, who can transform and respond to the environments we're in. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we do in Canada to help make that happen. First off, just to give a little bit of context of who the Coaching Association of Canada is. So we are what we call uniters. We unite sport in Canada through quality coaching education. Our goal is to bring people together, to bring organizations together in the interest of building better coaches and to create better athletes and participants. We've been around since 1971. And we were created, in fact, because of the 1976 Olympics, when there was really no coaching education, formal coaching education in Canada. And so thus we were born. And it's been quite the journey since that very modest beginning with maybe a dozen sport organizations focusing on more of the high performance level of coaching education. And so it's a very big privilege for us in the organization to work through building our coaches in Canada. And I'll share a little bit about how we do that, what we do, and some of the areas where we find ourselves going in the years to come. Our first is to share with you how the organization functions. We work across the Canadian sport landscape, and we work in 4 key areas. The first one, which we'll really focus on today, is in coaching education. And I'll describe how we do that along the way here in more detail. But ultimately, our role is to live up to a promise and a commitment to athletes and participants and parents throughout the country in building quality coaching education programs that they can count on and expect from their coaches throughout the country, from community to high performance. The other priority within there is that we want to commit to our coaches too, to have the best possible experience and to equip them to have the best possible experience they can have. As we know, that's what keeps coaches in the game. The worst thing we can do to our coaches around the world is not prepare them for the experience that they are about to undertake, and hopefully the long, fulfilling career that they aspire to as young people. We think coaches are leaders, and so that's our leadership pillar, where we work in uniting coaches, in bringing through research, in bringing through all of those key role model behaviors that we can see from our coaches that can change society and change the world, really. It's why we're here today. Each and every one of you has chosen to be a coach and a leader. And so you're engaging in this reflection of your coaching philosophy and your coaching understanding in order to become better and to create a better impact. The third and fourth pillars are also critical for us, the profession of coaching, and there are so many different models here too around the world. We work with our sport organizations in this area, and truly our goal is to uphold the standards of the profession and protect coaches while doing so. And finally, our commitment to our partners is truly to be excellent in the way we run our organization so that we can actually fulfill our commitment based on the resources that we all have to deliver sport throughout the world. That was the what, and now I'd like to talk about the how. We spend a lot of time within the Coaching Association of Canada and within our partners talking about what are those best qualities of coaches. What is it that we want to see? How do we want to behave? How do we want to hold ourselves accountable? And by holding ourselves accountable, we have to be able to have the words to back up those conversations where we uphold or we don't uphold the values of the coach. And so this is a very explicit step for all of us in our coaching community, and particularly within the staff and the board of directors of the Coaching Association of Canada, is talking about the how. And this drives and guides us in all of our thinking in our coaching community in Canada. I'm going to share now a little bit about the National Coaching Certification Program. So we've spoken a little bit about the fact that this presentation is on coaching education. And so what I'm sharing with you here, which is available on our coach.ca website, is the type and the breadth and the depth of coaching that we support within Canada. And so we really want to support and deliver on our commitments from community coaches to high performance coaches for Olympics, for Paralympics, for different levels of coaching right through the country. And the way we guide our coaches through this training, particularly at the introductory level, is to help them self-identify where they want to coach. And really, it's important for us that we talk about coaching in the context of our long-term athlete development model. And so our coaching education programs are based on the coaching context where that coach will find themselves. It's a very big difference in our coaching training and development programs, whether it be related to somebody working at the community level, in the learn to play phases versus the train to train, train to compete, and train to win phases. And so the program really addresses that continuum for our coaches in how they can access this National Coaching Certification Program. So that looks quite large, and the only way we accomplish it is through a significant partnership throughout the country. So we know that the fastest way to impact the coach on the ground or to impact the participant or athlete on the ground is through collaboration. It is absolutely the speed lightning key to success to changing the coach who might live 2,000 miles away in Canada, as we are a very big country, and how we train and partner to build a better society. So as you can see here, the coach has the capacity to come in through a variety from left to right of community sport coaching, getting into competitive coaching, and getting into instruction in the technical, tactical, and in some instances in Canada that really relates to the martial arts and to other technical and tactical strategies. How we do that in our partnership? Well, it's through a giant web of sport organizations. So we work with 66 national sport organizations to help them design and build and accredit every coaching program that they have, from community to high performance. And so we have a team of consultants, and they work through the design in the what we would call multi-sport. So be that plan of practice or ethics or safety considerations, right through the technical tactical. So the quality assurance within the national coaching program is actually that we have a peer-based accreditation process. So for every one of these sports, for every program that they design, that we support them in their development of, we actually walk through a peer-based accreditation and review of each program. And so that gives us a significant credibility. It helps us to unite our sporting community and to create the minimum standard that each and every one of these organizations has committed to upholding. As part of our coaching education program, and this is somewhat unique to Canada, is that we have our 13 provinces and territories in addition to our federal government. When I talked about the ways in which this program was not necessarily envisioned in the 1970s, the two areas that would be the case would be in the partnership with 66 sports and in the partnership with every government across the country. So every government across the country helps to invest and build and deliver on coaching education right down to the grassroots and community level. And in fact, these provincial and territorial governments use our data on coaching education participation to assess and design future sport delivery and funding within each of their provinces and territories. So really what we've created is this very united front throughout the country in delivering our coaching education. And so what it means is it looks a little bit like this. So if you can see here on this slide, it means that our coaches, if you look at the top left in the green, blue, and orange, that we have in last year's training, 25,000 community coaches who took our training, 12,000 competitive coaches, and 14,000 instruction coaches. They did so in 33,000 events across the country, and they represent a higher percentage of male coaches to female coaches. So Pedro, thank you for that nod about female leadership. It's really important, and that's a priority area for us. So the bottom map just shows you in the thousands where the coach delivery happens. So it follows the population base across the country. And some of you may know that it takes us 10 hours to fly from the west coast of our country to the east coast of our country. So it is a very big geographic spread. And so we rely on our partners to be able to deliver that breadth and scope. And so really that delivery is what the National Coaching Certification Program represents. If I share a little bit more with you in terms of that quality assurance, I think if you were to look at this model, and if you were to look at the columns where it's 3, so the 3 contexts of coaching: community, sport, competitive, and instruction. And then if you go to the 5, this is critical, and then the 7. So the 5 is our commitment to ensuring that each coach experiences these 5 core competencies and builds their ability to deliver on these 5 core competencies when they access coaching training. Our program is a competency-based program, so it's the ability to do, and that is absolutely ingrained in all of our training. And so we need our coaches to be able to value the system, the athletes, the coaching methodology, to be able to reflect, to create problem solving and critical thinking, to lead and to interact. These are the 5 core principles of competencies that we expect our coaches to experience in the continuum of their coaching education journey. And so those are critical, and every coaching education program is evaluated based on those 5 core competencies. The final 7, which is on the right, is really about those outcomes. So their ability to do and to deliver on those 7 areas is a commitment that we have within all of our coaching education programs. And those then can become very sport specific in terms of the ability of the coach to transfer the concepts or those outcomes within their sport specific environments, which then allows the evaluation of those specific outcomes so that coaches may become certified. So the design of this coaching education program was done with the majority of those 66 partners, which I referenced, as well as our governments. And the value of that type of design is that once the commitment is made, the partners must adhere to those commitments. And so the process of designing that can sometimes be slow, but the value of it is once it's designed, then the ability for the system to commit to that on behalf of the parents in our communities is very strong. And so that is the opportunity that we have within Canada, that we have all of these sports who come together and commit to the design and delivery of core competencies and key outcomes that must be in every coaching education program, from archery down to luge, bobsleigh, skeleton, pick a sport, and the ability for them to commit to delivering on that in their program. And the value of that is that we know in some instances when training is left to a sport to design on its own, we don't actually see a continuum of training programs that reflect what the parent or the participant might expect. And so really that principle is, as a participant or an athlete, it really shouldn't matter what sport that I plan to engage in. I should be able to understand that the coaches who will come into the clubhouse will be able to apply and implement the best practices in these areas to give those athletes the best positive experience that they can have in coaching. And we all know the importance of eliminating as much early sports specialization as possible and experiencing as many sports as it relates to future performance and future success. And finally, a word for the professional coaches who are joining us here today. First of all, a thank you for your dedication and your commitment to the profession. We know that in Canada, we have a significant number of community coaches, but we also have a very powerful cohort of professional coaches that are so important to the role modeling of coaches at every level of the system. And so we work with our sport partners to uphold the profession, to protect our coaches, and to engage in the best possible standards to enhance the contribution of sport in Canada and around the world. And that is why our partnership with Portugal is so important, with Pedro and Carolina, because this is how we get better, by sharing and creating those opportunities to increase our standards. The next phase that I will share with you is simply the matter for countries around the world to unite in safe sport. We do have a significant threat around the world and Canada as well, in terms of abuse, the elimination of abuse and harassment in sport. And so in response to supporting our coaching education and the delivery of quality coaching, the organization and our partners felt that we needed to get into very practical steps to support our coaches and our athletes and our participants in building safer sport. And so as such, and based on leading research, we know that there are 3 key areas where we're trying to transform the system across the country so that the conversations in the clubhouse are based on professional standards, and that they implement very significant components of ensuring the rule of two, so protecting our young people so that they don't find themselves alone in the clubhouse or in social activities with one person, making sure we screen our coaches and that we engage and train our coaches and our partners in ethics. And these last two slides are really part of where we are going as an organization, and which I encourage us all to think about in terms of how we equip our coaches. And as Henry said, how we build our young people and help them in their critical reflection and in their thinking and their capacity to become the best at who they are and contribute beyond the world of sport. And so I share this with you from the World Economic Forum, and I draw your attention particularly to the 2020 top skills that are required for individuals to be successful in work and in life. And it's really important that we think about and create opportunity for the reflection, the critical thinking, the emotional intelligence, the creativity, and creativity keeps moving up in the priorities of employable individuals. And so as we talk about those coaches who are by the bench screaming and directing constantly, in some ways it becomes an at odds with supporting the development of our individuals and those critically needed skills to become become part of the fabric of society that values complex problem solving, critical thinking, being able to engage and interact, to be creative. Collaboration around the world has been tested so much through our current time, and this is an example of how we overcome it and we come together. And so we are working through as the Coaching Association of Canada how we address and incorporate the right skills in our coaching, training, and development, and further helping our coaches to invest in those skills in transformational coaching for our participants and athletes at the stage appropriate time. The last phenomenon that I wanted to share with you, which is one that particularly at the more elite and high performance level is changing our coaching education programs. And that's really the notion of just in case learning versus just in time learning. And so we're seeing a trend where individuals, and not just in coaching education, but across all sectors, are moving away from what we would call just in case learning to accessing information and knowledge and skills in time for when they need it. And in fact, it quite links to the top 2020 skills. If you think about the ability to think and create and solve problems that are complex, well, it means, in fact, that the corollary is you're going to be accessing information and training and development in a real-time format. The just in case has a place in coaching, education, and training and development, and typically it is more at the earlier stages of a coach's career. The just in case is that formalized, pre-packaged coaching education that you provide to the coach just in case they need it in their coaching careers. We know that coaches don't access all of the information all at the same time in their coaching journey, that they access things as appropriate and as they move forward. So this is a really critical thinking component for all of us as we think about how we've learned in a pre-packaged, just in case formal classroom training environment versus as learners, as coaches, as lifelong learners, how we think about accessing information and development and training to achieve the performances for ourselves and for our athletes as we continue in our coaching careers. And so this is a critical piece that we are evolving at our high performance level that is designing a very customized coaching education and training programs based on where the individual is at in their coaching journey and based on their performance objectives. And so I think that is the information that I hope touches on some of our coaching education programs and what keeps us in line with what we think are best practices. And finally, I do hope I see all of you in 2021 in Portugal. And the Global Coach Conference is spectacular. I've had the privilege of being at so many of them. And they are people just like you and I who come together, who want to feel connected, who want to learn, who want to grow, who want to be part of the coaching community around the world. And I invite you all to celebrate in 2021 in Portugal. And Pedro, I think that's it for now. I will stop sharing my screen, I think.
Yes, please, Lorraine.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Good.
Yes, this is perfect. Okay, Lorraine, thank you very much for your very nice presentation. Before starting with the questions, I would like to give two information to our coach who are here in this Zoom room. The first information is all these videos from these 2 days will be accessed through our YouTube channel. So if for any chance you lost some of the information or some of the questioning and answering, please, you are free to go there and listening again to our great lectures today. The second information is, and I'm seeing that everybody, or there are already some questions, please put the question in the question in answering in the bottom of your Zoom. I will say this now in Portuguese because I know that many are here are Portuguese coaches. Por favor, se tiverem questões para colocar, se repararem na parte de baixo da sala do Zoom, vocês, entre os participantes e o bate-papo, tem lá o Q&A, que é das perguntas e respostas, coloquem aí porque vai-me facilitar a minha tarefa enquanto moderador. Muito obrigado. Okay, Lorraine. Well, I will start. I have two questions for you. Of course, you are a little luckier than Henry because after your presentations, we will have our round table, and of course, you will have then also more time to explain if there are any doubts, and I'm pretty sure this will be also an important moment. But concerning your presentation now, I have two very concrete questions. Maybe this is more a question of terminology, maybe not. For you, what is the evaluation from a certification program like you have to a license system? So this means, for instance, in some countries, as in Portugal, I will explain this later, you only can be a coach, even if you have a certificate. This certificate is only valid if you have a license. If you have not a license, you are not allowed to be a coach. How is this in Canada, and what is your opinion about this?
Well, I think it's really good, and it's about the profession and how you protect the profession.
Exactly.
And that is about each coach protecting themselves as well as their fellow coaches. We have some licenses which are sports specific, and so like golf, like swimming, they have specific licenses that are within the sport. That is what makes them eligible to coach in the system. We also have what we would call a licensing or a registration that is set up for our Olympic Games, our Paralympic Games, and our Continental Championships that really are about setting a commitment to every Olympic or Paralympic athlete that the coach has done a certain screening and has certain conditions met over and above the education. Yeah.
So there is no law certificate. So the certificates are or not yet, or
Not
I mean
yet.
the license, yes. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, very good. The second question from my side and last question from my side is concerning for the last years, I always at your website looking what you are doing. So I know that you are doing this for many years. Well, Canada is doing this for many years. How do you evaluate your system? Every year, every 4 years, when or when you say, okay, now we need to make an update. So how do you, in the field, I'm not saying theoretically, but in the field, how you see if everything is going the way you planned and so on? So evaluation question.
That's a three questions in one, Pedro.
Okay, sorry for that.
So that's okay. The first one is we have a very strong research strategy, and we work with our universities across the country to help us to evaluate our program efficacy. So we know it has to be independent, and so we work with our universities to evaluate our program. Sometimes it's specific areas of the program, sometimes it's the global program, and that's a negotiation with our universities based on their priorities and our priorities. So we do that every year. We also, with our partners, take on different aspects of evaluation of our own on the ground, the way you describe, where we can try to identify where the strengths are, either in the coaching education or the program delivery, and then we report back. So we come together annually as a system to review where we are and discuss our evaluation and our priorities. The third part of your question was really about changing the program curriculum, I think, Pedro, is what you were saying. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a harder question because all of us, the curriculum that was in coaching education programs up until 10 years ago was very stable. It did not change as much. Differently at the elite level, but across the community. But then, and this is in every profession, starting about 10 years ago, it's a significant ramp up where the expectation is that there's a real-time review and content updating that occurs within coaching education. And so we try to find the balance there in terms of what we would call our just in case, our general prepackaged program, where it's supplemented with the research, the leading research to inform the coaches in best practices. And so really it's a bit of both. It's more stable at the community level, but more adaptable at the high performance level. So what we might call non-curriculum based, in fact, we actually work with our instructors and our professors to actually build the curriculum year over year based on best practice. And we do that based on the coach's needs.
Okay. Thank you, Lorraine. I have here, I think that this question is linked with my question before, so it's quite interesting. I will quote from Nelson concerning license. He asks, are those sport-specific licenses in Canada one time forever, or do you have to constantly renew your license? For example, I'm a football coach and fitness coach. I have to constantly renew 2 separate licenses every several years. It is similar in Canada. Thank you and stay safe, everyone. So this was the question.
Everybody stay safe too. So yes, you have to renew every year. And the principle behind that is that you access the services every year. And so you benefit from the services and from the license, which the services grow and change over time. And so that's the intent with the licenses in Canada as well.
Okay. Now concerning ethics, the question is there in Canada a national ethics plan for coaches, or is this only through your association and not in contact with other associations like universities and government and so on?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is that our national coaching certification program has a mandatory ethics training for all coaches. And in fact, a coach cannot become certified until they complete an exam in ethics. So that is uniting every coach in an exam in ethics that is critical. Our system is changing a fair bit in terms of the ethics, and we're working through a national system code of conduct that will apply to all sports. We have a system, we have a code of conduct that applies to coaches right now if they sign up, and every sport has their own code of conduct, which is a problem. So we're trying to unite under one.
Okay, this was the second question about if there is a code of conduct, but you already answered.
Yeah.
Okay, another question about I'm quoting, about early sports specialization. Is there a special program for the coaches concerning this?
Yes, very much. That all of the training reviews what we call our long-term athlete development model. And the training that our coaches receive is very much about eliminating or avoiding early sport specialization. Like every other country, we have some of the same pressures that coaches feel when they go to the clubhouse and they want to extend their season so that the athletes are only in their sport, or they tell them they can't participate in another sport, or they feel the parent pressure. And for us, professional ice hockey is one of those sports where because there's so much money, we see a bigger pressure, or football, we're seeing that as well. So we try to train and educate our coaches as much as possible to avoid that.
Okay. Now a question in a different direction. Is Canada open for foreign coaches? What should a coach do from another country or from another continent do if they want to go to Canada and coach? How is the process?
Well, that's a hard question to answer when I can't even leave my house.
Yes, we are forgetting that you need to make all the tests from COVID. Yes.
So we have a few programs. One of the programs is it's a bit easier if you're under 30 because we have a kind of an internship opportunity with some sports that we see young coaches taking advantage of. Like every country, we have a policy around ensuring eligible coaches who have the expertise are offered the opportunity to take on those programs. And it's becoming harder and harder sometimes to bring in foreign coaches, but it is possible, and it depends on your sport, and it depends on the employment opportunity that's in front of you. So it's complex, like in a lot, in the territory of Canada.
Okay. And this is a personal question. Is there a difference between the French-spoken language and the English-spoken language? Is this an issue for who is coming from outside, or there is no difference?
Mais non, il n'y a pas de différence.
Ah, bien sûr.
There is no difference. And our program is obviously delivered in both official languages.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Should the coach be increasingly generalist or more specialist? This is always the dilemma.
I love these questions. How much time do we have?
We still have 6 minutes only with you, but at the end you will have again time. So some of the questions, if there is no time, you can answer later.
Yeah, I think the path to success is surrounding yourself with the people who have the skill set you don't have. Okay. So it's that's a tough question to answer, and it's based on the environment. I think one of the things I would just say here is with the advent of all the sports scientists that are coming around the coach, one of the things that we know is we need to protect the relationship between the coach and the athlete. So I bring that up because a coach, one of the skill sets that's very important for our elite coaches to have is the ability to synthesize the sports sciences that are surrounding our athletes now. Because if it's athlete-centered, it needs to be coach-led. And that's a new skill set that I think our coaches need to make sure they build into their skill set.
The last two questions before we go to our second break. One is, I'm quoting, so the person, Miguel, is giving you a lot of positive feedbacks, but getting to the question, he asks, in a more generic standpoint, what would you consider to be the big challenge for coaching as a profession in the future?
Burnout. So I think a couple of things. I think if we look at our elite coaches, the number of hours, the number of travel days, the obligations are very complex, and they are only becoming more complex. And I think maybe our current coaches are okay with that, but if we think of our younger generations and their ability to pick coaching as a profession for the future, I think we really need to think about that. I think the second part of that answer is really related to how we support the coach, deal with parent pressure, deal with performance pressure, which is tied to Olympic funding, which is tied to all of those pieces. And so I think those are really important threats for coaching organizations and coaches to unite around.
Okay. Now, it's more like with Henry, an outbox question, but I think it's a nice question or interesting question. In your opinion, spectacular sports is a product of the development process, or is a strategy to get more young athletes and coaches for the different sports?
So spectacular sports?
Yes, I think the person means high-level sports, professional sports like in NBA, or ice hockey, and baseball, and so on, high-level sports.
Yes, it is. And we see, and I'm sure countries around the world, when you have an Olympic Games, if you win an Olympic medal in swimming, then in the fall, you see an increase in registrations, and young people want to take on swimming at a performance level. I think the challenge that we have is the system needs to prepare for more people to be knocking at their door if they have an Olympic or Paralympic medalist athlete. I can think of many sports in Canada who, we just had a new sport, we won a medal in Rio, and the sport wasn't ready for the number of athletes who all of a sudden wanted to play in that team sport. So they went to these young people, and their parents went to the clubhouse to say, oh, we want to try this, but their programs are sold out, or they didn't have the volunteers or the staff to help run as many programs as they need to. So yes, and it has to be thought through if you have a sport that has a lot of medals.
Okay. It must be the last question for now, and I think it's linked with your answer now. The question is, if in Canada, the major objectives of the different sports and associations are in accordance with the Olympic cycles, or with the assessment of the results achieved in the various national and international competitions. So I believe what is the question, or the main issue of the question, is if there is a planning, a four-year planning. It doesn't matter what happened in the middle, but at the end the target is the Olympic Games, or every competition, national and international competition, is as much important every year. So the relation between planning, long-time planning, and less long-time planning, I would say this.
Yeah. So I've had the privilege of being the chief executive for cycling and for canoeing. And so the answer is very different. If you were to talk about road worlds versus the Olympic Games, or the Football World Cup versus the Olympic Games, countries will have different answers of where their priorities and where their peaks are. What we see in Canada generally is those sports that commit to the Olympic cycle have first of all, a 4+1 window. It's not a 4-year cycle. It's a 4+1, so that you're not falling off the Olympic program and you don't know what you're doing for the next 4 years. So that's the first thing that's really important. In terms of performances throughout the 4 years leading up to an Olympic Games, if I understand the question, yes, some of our sport organizations will negotiate where the performances are going to happen in order to be prepared for an Olympic medal. And that does not mean gold medal at all world championships whatsoever. So that is absolutely part of our national federation thinking. And it's also negotiated with our funding agency. So in other words, it's not a secret, it's confidential, but it's a commitment to a plan.
Okay. Lorraine, thank you very much for your answer. For now, I have here a terrific question from Vitor Santos, but I will leave this question because I think this question will be very interesting to be answered in our next session together with you and with Sergio. So again, thank you. You have 9 minutes to drink something or to eat something, and we go for a break. So see you in 9 minutes at 6 here.
Status booster, go. GNC, go. Start throttle up.
Conquer Lisbon 2021 with a coaching spirit.
Okay, so we are back to our first day of Congress. Okay, we have the picture and the video of Lorraine. So we will start now our last session. I hope you have a nice break. It was only 9 minutes. No Portuguese food today, but I'm pretty sure that in 1 year you will have the opportunity to have our food. Lorraine, before you came, I was telling Sergio, I have here a terrific bottle of wine for you as a gift, but because I cannot give you this, I will drink this during the Congress. Sorry to say.
Send it by email.
I will try, Sergio. Okay, back to our coaches. So I'm not sure on the left, on the right, in where you are seeing Sergio. So Lorraine, you already know, she had just now had a terrific lecture and terrific answer for the difficult questions from the coaches from the different parts of the world. Sergio Lara-Bercial will be with us today. Sergio works for ICC. He is reader in sport coaching at Leeds Beckett University and manager for strategy and development for the ICC. So thank you very much, Sergio, for being here today. I hope you like the table. It's very round. It's our round table. And I will, for the beginning, I will make a small presentation from coach education from Portugal, because for the coaches that are outside our country doesn't know how this works. And of course, then later during our discussion, if you, Sergio, and you, Lorraine, want to use something from what I said, I will try to put questions to you. But of course, if you need some input or some answer from my side, I can also do this. And for the coaches who are hearing us again, please, after my presentation, it's a very small presentation. It's about a 2 minutes presentation, only to give a picture to Lorraine and Sergio concerning our coach education in Portugal. Then you can use the question and answering chat that you have at the bottom of Zoom and put the questions, and I will transfer to them, to our both guests. But of course, I will not forget the question that Victor put it there for Lorraine, but I think it's a very nice question also for Sergio and even to me. Okay, so now it's my time to share my, okay, so I believe you all see my my presentation. Now it's my time to have your feedback, but I saw from Lorraine that it's okay. So very quick. I will put here all the organizations. Sergio already knows this slide from our meeting from Coaches Force, just explaining that in Portugal, this is our organization. So at the top, we have the Minister of Education, then we have the Secretary of Sport, and then we have the important council from sports, where Coaches of Portugal, through his president, now it's me, in the past it was José Corrado, has his chair there. And then we have a lot of connections with the different organizations in Portugal. And at the end, we have 23 coaches associations who from the different sports who are inside Coaching Portugal. So this is only a small picture about how we are organized. So concerning the coach education program in Portugal, so we had a law 8 years ago. Now we have an updated law. It started in March 2020 because in Portugal, after the laws are published, they have 6 months to be full functional. And so this is since 1 month working on. So 2 major questions here. First of all, and here, Lorraine, this is the difference, and that was the question from me, that here in Portugal, it's obligatory for all coaches to have a coaching license. So one thing is the certification program, as you said, but here we have this license. The license is from the government. It's not from the sports. So it has the name of the sport. So I have level 4 in handball and level 2 in baseball. I have 2 licenses. But if I want to be a coach in football, I'm not allowed because I have no license to be coach in football or ice hockey. Well, not ice hockey. It's not a good example here in Portugal, but you understand, swimming or whatever. And the second, it's concerning the first one. In all ages, training and competition, the coach must have a coaching license. So in Portugal, it's not possible. I'm a parent. I like handball, so I can coach handball. No, this is not possible in Portugal. You must have a license, and you can only get a license. And this is the last 2 slides. So the coaching license, there is 3 ways to get it in Portugal. One is through the national federations of the different sports. There are 4 levels in Portugal. Not all the sports have the 4 levels, because this takes in concern the development of each sport. So the more developed sports like tennis, swimming, handball, basketball, football, and so they have the 4 levels, or some of them have only 3 levels. But the starting or the new sports have sometimes only level 1 coaches, or maybe level 1 and level 2 coaches. In Portugal, it's possible if a private company is recognized by the government. It's a very tough and difficult process. But for instance, the company who is helping us with the organization is partner in our organization. Here, Gnosis, for instance, this is a private company, but is full certified by our government for giving coaches courses. And about our university, and you know, in Portugal we have two systems, university and polytechnic system, but both are high education. They don't give coach courses. Their courses, undergraduations and master programs can be recognized by the government for a level. For instance, in my university, almost all the sports are recognized for level 2. So someone coming from my university can coach. If he has specialization in one sport and get in the level 2, he can go directly to his profession. And our curriculum, the new curriculum, looks like this. So this is what is obligatory concerning so general curriculum. You have 36 hours level 1, 60 hours level 2, 80 hours level 3, and 32 hours level 4. And when we are speaking about specific, so handball, tennis, so you have the same hours in level 1 and in level 2. Then in level 3 and level 4, there is much more specific. And now, Lorraine, you understand one of the questions that was made about this balance between general and specific. And level 1 and level 2, it's obligatory to have practicum during 1 year. There is a mistake, it's not practice, it's practicum. So during 1 year, I need to have a tutor. And after this year, if I'm approved, then I will get the lessons level 1. And then after the next year, I can go to level 2. And again, at the end, if I'm approved in the 3 models, I will get the lessons level 2. And then after 2 years, I can go and apply for level 3 lessons. So this is very resumed, but I think you got the picture, and I believe also all the coaches who are here at Zoom and at YouTube and Facebook who are not Portuguese have an idea how we are working here. Okay, so back to our roundtable. Maybe I will start like this because so I can have oxygen for 1 minute. Sergio, you didn't have the time yet to speak, but maybe you could to start to give a picture from ICC side. What ICC think about coach education all around the world and license system and what you are doing. And I give you 75 seconds for this. Do you think it's enough?
Yeah, I will really introduce ICC very quickly, and then I will give you a quick update of where we are. Okay. But thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you to Pedro and everybody else at Treinadores Portugal for the invitation. It's a great initiative to not be beaten by coronavirus and to go ahead with the conference. So I commend you on that. Basically, ICC is, if you want, I always compare it to the United Nations of coaching. So it's a member-based organization that brings together over 50 countries to work together to develop coaching to new levels. Okay, and by coaching, I don't mean just the act of coaching, but coaching as a profession and as a family of people. Okay, in that sense, we are concerned not only with qualifications, but also with for example, the working conditions of coaches, the continuous development of coaches, the recognition of coaches, and really in listening to all the speakers today, to Henry first, from perhaps a much more applied coaching on the ground, to Lorraine with a high-level perspective of the whole of the Canadian system, which has to be said is an example of a fantastic system worldwide, to then the system in Portugal. The issues that everybody's grappling are quite similar in the sense of how do we engage people into coaching first? How do we get people to be coaches, to want to be coaches? and to remain in the family of coaching after they start? How do we then develop these people so they can deliver the best possible experience to those they work with? And how do we recognize the work of these coaches? So in that sense, all the issues you've mentioned around education, licensing, recognition, they're all present in every country in the world. And as Lorraine said, every country is finding different ways of going about this because there are no solutions that work off the shelf, because you have to really take into account the context and cultural traditions of your country as well before you decide on what system is going to work in your country. Does that help, Pedro?
Very, very, very. Thank you, Sergio. Lorraine, I have here the question that I want that you answer. It's a little, again, out of the box about coach education, but I think it's really important. It is directly to you, but at the end, I would like to hear the opinion and what ICC is doing concerning this. And I will also give the opinion about what Portugal is doing this, because I think it's very important. So the question, and I will quote from Vitor Santos, was, with the appearance of this epidemic disease, what changes Canada associations and federations did to help the coaches? I would say this is the 1 million, not question, but also answer that we need them. Lorraine.
Yeah, thank you. Very early on, we were delivering coach education online. We had started a couple of years ago with our blended learning approach, so in person, online, by the field of play. And really what ended up happening very quickly is we shifted to massive online delivery. And so our role became coaching the coaches who delivered the online format. So we have been spending significant amount of time training the coaches or the teachers, we call them coach developers, to be able to deliver our coaching education online to help the coaches to be ready for when they were able to go back to coaching athletes and participants. That's the first thing. The second thing we did is it's very important to think about all of the different aspects of coaching education and training, and which can be delivered online and which cannot be delivered online to help the coaches, and then what the coaches can then deliver to the athlete online versus not. And that's a very country legal specific question, and a very important insurance question for every sport organization to determine what can happen. So we work with our sport organizations to answer some of those questions, but to take on as much as we can in the short term online through Zoom or through Adobe or other courses. The other thing that's happened, much like this conference, is our sport organizations are seeing a need to connect with the coaches online and have conferences and sessions like this. And we're seeing events sell out very quickly. So people are really interested in feeling connected in this time of isolation.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. Sergio.
Yeah, very similar, really. Obviously, ICC doesn't have a responsibility over any of the countries. We bring countries together, okay? But we've tried to also support our members by doing a number of things, really. Not only the members, but also all the coaches globally. As Lorraine just said, a main feature really of the last few weeks has been the creation of a series of webinars that have been really well attended, and we've been very fortunate. One of the privileges of ICCE is that because we are a member-based organization, our network of contacts is really, really big, and therefore we can get some really good people to speak at our webinars, really, like you have done with Lorraine and myself today. But really, for example, today, I'm on both sides of the table today. So earlier today, I was hosting a webinar with John Atkinson, who is actually the performance director for Swim Canada, and he did a tremendous job. And we had between the live feed on YouTube and the Zoom, a couple of 100 people watching, and then it's going to be on our YouTube channel. And that's been working really well. We've done something similar with one of our projects called I Coach Kids, which is directly aimed at children's coaches. We are now on to our 6th webinar. And again, they've been very well attended, and they're also available on the YouTube channel. And then what we're also trying to do is, we're trying, now that the best practices are emerging, because after a few weeks having to deal with this, every country is doing different things. So I think our next challenge, and what we're trying to invest time into doing, is to collect those practices from different countries and share those with the rest of the membership, because everybody's looking for ideas in how to deal with this.
Yes.
It's a novel situation for everybody. No one has all the answers. And I think that's something that we're going to try and start doing. We've already started to collect some of these practices. But that's where we are going really in the next few weeks.
Okay, Sergio, thank you. Before I give my answer, before I forget to say, because we are at a round table, every time, Sergio, if you want to make a question direct to Lorraine, or Lorraine wants to make a question direct to Sergio, you can do this, okay? You don't need to wait every time for, or even if you have a question to me, or be free to do this, okay? In life, it would be easier, but here we can also do exactly the same. Concerning Portugal, we have, I would say, 2 levels of answer. The first answer is we made a quiz for all coaches in Portugal to know exactly the number of coaches and the number of amount they are losing because they are not working. So we are making a lobby with our government to try that there is a direct help from the government to the coaches. It will not be easy, but this is our job, and we will do everything that we can do to help them like this. So this would be a direct help. The indirect help is the same as Lorraine and you, Sergio, said. So, and I'm very proud of what I will say now. We are doing this webinar, and everything what we are doing now for the coaches, it's for free. This is one way that we have to help them, so that they don't need to spend money to be updated, to get education. So for us, this is really important. And I can tell you, Sergio, and this is not pressure for you as a person, but I tell you, this is a promise from me to all coaches of the world who are listening to me, that this is for me the most important issue in our conference in 2021. Portugal and ICC must show to the coaches that this conference is really for all the coaches in the world, and not only for those one who have a lot of money to spend, because I know how much money I did spend to go to Japan. And for a normal coach in Portugal, because 95% of them are volunteer, this would be impossible. So we will do all the efforts inside our country to have the money enough to say, ICC, okay, we can do something that is for all coaches. I know that for free it's impossible, but it must be adapted to the real coaches and not for the top coaches or for top researchers. And I always, and my board think like this, but now this is really very important. We are lucky, I must say, and now I'm not speaking about the coaching conference, because we get support from the government. So there would be no sense we getting support from the government and asking for the coaches to pay to be here with you both. So this is the way we are helping. And of course, I know that many national federations in Portugal are doing the same, and this is great. And I know even private companies are not asking for monies to the coaches. So I think there are a lot of people and a lot of institutions who are helping the coaches. But at the end, it's a very stress. If you don't have direct money, they really need direct money to survive. Okay, this was my statement. Back to our guests. And now you can choose who wants to answer first my question, and taking in the answer from Lorraine, but I want to get back to this question concerning license system and coach education. When we speak about profession in sports in Portugal, and I know in Europe, one thing is a professional activity. And I'm pretty sure that when Lorraine is a coach and Sergio, you are a coach, and even when you are volunteer, you have a professional attitude. During these 2 hours or 3 or half an hour, you are professional, even if you are volunteer. So there is always a balance. If you are volunteer, should there be a license system like we have in Portugal or not? If you are volunteer, why should I have a certificate education if I'm doing this for free? So how do you deal with this, and what is your opinion and your inputs for the next years concerning this issue? I have at my right in my computer Lorraine, at my left Sergio. So who wants to start?
I'm gonna let Lorraine go first.
Women's first. Very good. Very polite. Okay, Lorraine.
So in fact, in Canada, even though we don't have a licensing system, we actually have mandated training requirements. So in our national coaching certification program, because really a government licensing system did not exist, they actually must have certain, what we would call legislation, certain education requirements to coach at the community level or at a provincial level or otherwise. So in fact, we protect one of the aspects of licensing by managing or requiring minimum education, not in the university system or in the technical institutes, but in our delivery of our coaching education, which includes the ethics and the code of conduct. So it is how we try to maintain or support that standard. And as I mentioned, 90% of our coaches are volunteers as well.
I think,
Sergio.
yeah, again, back to my previous point, I'm just checking that everybody can hear me okay. I believe someone was struggling before. You good? Okay.
Yes, I see the problem is what not with you. It was maybe the internet from some of the, but when you are closer, we hear you better, I must say.
Okay. Yeah, I'm worried because I've got two children in my house, and I've forbidden them to play in the PlayStation until I finish this. Okay, so I'm hogging all the bandwidth. So we need to make it worth it.
I hope no esports coach is hearing you, but you can continue.
No, listen, the problem of coaching as a profession and coaches acting as professionals or with professionalism is present in every country. Okay. Now I can give you a bit more information regarding the picture in the European Union. As you know, Pedro, because you are part of the project, we are conducting research at the moment into what professionalization or what the professional coaching looks like across the European Union. Okay, and for that we are looking at, is there a law that governs coaching? Is there a licensing system? What's the qualification requirements? What additional requirements are there to become a coach? How are coaches recognized? And what we are seeing, okay, and this is being driven quite hard by the European Commission, is that there is a tendency and a trend towards some form of professionalization across the whole of the European Union. Now, as I was saying before, what that looks like for every country and every sport, it may be slightly different because of the conditions of every country or the traditions. But there is definitely a tendency to, for example, if you're not qualified, you can coach. Okay, bottom line.
Yes.
There's a certain what we call minimum standards for deployment, and if you're not qualified, if you don't have a first aid qualification, and if you don't have a criminal check, then you can coach. And if you do, you are coaching illegally, basically. Okay, there is a tendency to have some sort of law that determines who can be a coach and what are the rights and responsibilities of coaches. Okay, because a lot of the times what's been missing from the debate is the rights of the coach. We've been very quick to put things on coaches. You need to do this, you need to do that qualification, this certificate, but not so much about the rights of the coach. The rights to a remuneration, if the work they're doing should be remunerated, the rights to holidays, to protection. So that there's a balance, or there is at the moment, what we see from the research is that there is a menu of options of how different countries and sports are resolving that problem. But everybody is going in that direction. I'm not saying that coaching is going to be a fully regulated profession in every country in 5 years from now. Okay, I'm not saying that. But every country is finding ways to regulate or semi-regulate the profession for two purposes: for the benefit of the participants, but also for the benefits of the coaches themselves. Because at the end of the day, and as you know, I'm a coach, I spend normally between 20 and 25 hours a week coaching as a volunteer, okay, with no remuneration whatsoever. Okay, but there's still other ways to recognize what I do and look after me, even if I don't, even if it's not financial. Okay.
Okay, and maybe I go to Lorraine, but maybe you could join this concerning what you are saying, and because you are in ICC, how could the continents work? Because Europe is a challenge. I believe North America is another challenge, maybe not so big as Europe, but also the challenge. The country is big, but the challenge, I'm not sure if it is as big as in Europe. But how you think? Could we have a memorandum of understanding concerning this? I think there was a reason, because there was I'm making like this because I'm speaking with Lorraine, but I'm quite stupid because I'm speaking with myself. Sorry, I'm using the hands. Maybe this was a question to Lorraine before from some of the persons or the coaches when he asked, could I go to Canada? Because if I go to Spain as a handball coach, this is today not a problem. Even if I go to Czech Republic, this is not a problem. But if I go to Malaysia, if I go to China, if I go to South Africa, if I go to Brazil, or if I go to Canada, maybe this is still a problem. So how could ICC, how could Coach Canada, how could Portugal, how could we facilitate this without touching too much the government rules? Lorraine, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think the labor market in the European Union is so different than Canada. We don't have an exchange. The North American Free Trade Agreement is not an exchange of this type of labor, and so it doesn't matter if they're our neighbor to the south or if they're over the Atlantic or over the Pacific. The same rules apply for the territory of Canada in terms of immigration. We do work with our sport partners to help recognize equivalencies. So if the coach comes into the country and they have the equivalencies to meet the education requirements, then that's a step to support the coach in Canada. But for us, it's really more about our immigration laws. That is the first hurdle. Versus going from Portugal to Greece to France.
Okay, Sergio, having an open view from ICC.
I see that some people are still having trouble hearing me, so let me know, because I can try and get closer to my router if that helps. Okay.
Okay.
But basically, from an ICC perspective, we do two things really. First, we have created a series of international frameworks to support, to provide some common ground between countries. Now, those frameworks are not, if you want, official, in the sense that they are not bounded by law or anything like that. Okay. But we see, for example, in Europe, that countries are really using those frameworks to organize their coach education systems. So in a way, then those coach education systems can talk to each other in an easier way. So that's one thing that we're doing really, and we've done that with general coaching. We've done that with coaching degrees, and then the other thing we do is we try to encourage. I think one of the there's not an easy solution to this. Okay, one of the ways in which this can be improved is through the work of the international federations. So what we are encouraging international federations is to also develop their own frameworks. So maybe the French government is not going to talk to the Spanish government, but the Spanish Football Federation can talk to the French Football Federation, because UEFA has what they call the UEFA Coaching Convention, which standardizes what happens across countries in Europe in relation to coach education for football coaches. That's probably an easier way to go about it than trying to get governments to agree with each other, because that's going to be very difficult.
Okay. I have here questions coming now from the audience. The first question I'm quoting is, some coaches claim that due to their curriculum that they already did, do not need to meet the training hours to achieve the license renewal. Agree or disagree? Lorraine, do you want to say? False, okay. Lorraine, Sergio?
I think if coaches and coaching is like a profession, like every other profession, whether it be a medical doctor or an engineer, then the College of Coaches, the College of Doctors, the College of Engineers come together and they determine the minimum number of hours required to achieve the standard, and that's in the interests of protecting the public and protecting all coaches. So that's my opinion.
Okay, Sergio.
Yeah, for me, I don't want to be too strong on this. Okay, I don't want to be too preachy. Okay, but really, as coaches, we shouldn't be going to these things because we need to get the license. We should be trying to keep learning, yes, because we want to keep learning, because we want to improve, because we want to provide the best possible experience to. I think that's where we need to go. Having said that as well, we have a responsibility to create learning opportunities for coaches that are meaningful. And sometimes I can imagine that some coaches go to some points earning opportunities that don't mean anything to them. And Lorraine made a point before about education that has to be just in time. Okay, so I think we need to build more flexible systems that allow coaches to earn those points where they need them, not to have every coach go to the same thing. Okay, and again, that's difficult, and there are logistical implications for governments, sports, but we have to evolve towards that. And in that way, when coaches feel the learning is meaningful to them, then they will want to do it. You know, I do a lot of my learning independently. I read this book, I listen to this webinar, I go here, I ask questions, I reflect. I don't go to many things that are organized by someone else. Okay, it's a balance.
I must here. I also want to give my opinion. I agree with both of you. I must say, in the last years, I'm really proud from all Portuguese coaches, no exceptions, because of course, for example, this webinar, of course, it gets credit for the renewal of the license. This is true. I know this, but when we started this in Portugal, I would say that 10% of the coaches came for the knowledge, 90% came for the credits. Now I'm pretty sure that 95% are coming for the knowledge and 5% are coming for the credits. And I also agree with you, Sergio. There are a lot of coaches who are every day, they are being educated by themselves or reading or whatever, or webinars like this or other workshops. What I think should be the system is this should also count. This is a challenge in Portugal for my country, because I think it's as important to go to be 10 hours with Lorraine and as a supervisor in a program. This should also give credits, or go to Sergio and have a talk with him during 2 hours. So the system should be more flexible, because in the end, I think this is the big mistake. There is nobody who can say, I know what the coaches need. No, every coach knows what he needs. The problem is sometimes he cannot see a place where he can get what he needs. This is a problem, and we should be more open-minded. This would be my statement concerning this.
But in that sense, Pedro, if I can interrupt you there.
Of course.
If there is something that we are learning from the current time, is that there is a lot of things out there that just have to find a way to make coaches accountable, really, for that knowledge. But if I'm a basketball coach, which is what I am, okay, for those that don't know me, I am absolutely spoiled for opportunities for learning. Okay, there's a million YouTube channels, webinars, books. So we have to find a way to count those interactions, or to encourage people to go after the knowledge that they need. Okay, or in my case, for example, I'm very passionate about leadership and motivation. I think for me that's key in my coaching, and it's something that I need to get better desperately. Okay, so that's what I'm going to look for, and we just have to meet coaches in the middle. That's really where I am.
I believe we should. My solution would have a platform as good as Canada has, but that everybody could have access. I think this is the big solution, because even with the internet, if you put here webinar of coaches Portugal, maybe not in all countries they will have access to this. So I understand that sometimes it's also not so easy to find. Even if you go to ICC or to Coaching Portugal, we don't have access to everything. So maybe in the future we should have a joining network where everybody could have access to much information. I have here questions for you, and Sergio, I'm hearing you now with more cuts than at the beginning. So,
okay, I'm gonna move. Okay, just give me 10 seconds, and
No, it's not a problem. I have a question directly to Lorraine, so you have these 10 seconds.
Yeah, great.
Make it 15. Lorraine, there was here a question. Here is a coach from hiking, and she asked if in Canada this is considered as a sport or as a tourism walking, would I say?
Yeah, it is considered recreational. There is no national hiking federation. There's rock climbing, but not hiking. There's orienteering, so that's slightly different.
Yes, I know. Yes, okay. Yes, it is. Okay, it's like in Portugal. I think that was a question from Sonia. Okay, Sonia, you have your answer. I have here a second question, also very interesting. I think Sergio. Now you move. Now I have Lauren at left and you at right. See, so you are changing. No political ideology, so it's good. Half a time at left, half a time at right. So it is great. No, yes, I think now it's better, Sergio. Okay, the question now for both of you, I think you started to answer this, but the question is quite interesting. Nuno is saying, when at least Europe have a European coach program, my snowboard coach license course is only available in Portugal. Not even in Spain, I can work as snowboard instructor or coach. So again, this question of, and we are speaking about neighbors. So could ICC, could Canada, could we make something about this?
If I can, I mean, this is a very, very common issue. And it's even more common in sports like snowboarding, in the outdoor sports that have a high risk included. And you can still hear me, yeah?
Yes, perfect. Now it's perfect.
Yeah, and I know, so there are organizations, because in Europe, for example, in many countries, some of the outdoor sports, sometimes they fall into the coaching category, sometimes they fall into the outdoor and leisure. So it's messy because in every country is a bit different. But I think that the main solution there would be the work through the European federations or international federations. It's very difficult to get countries to agree on these things unless there is clear agreement within the international governing body. That's my perception, really.
Okay. Do you want to say something concerning this, Lorraine?
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, I think, no, it's a very complicated question, and it depends almost in the country you live in. I think Sergio's point about the international federations earlier is really part of this conversation. So it's not something we have necessarily in Canada. I do think the partnership within ICCE and with international federations helps coaches within their sport, but you still have to deal with the governments or the ability to go into other countries.
Okay.
So it's a bit like the anti-doping code.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Pedro, in Europe, the European Commission is really encouraging this, because the European Commission really wants people to be able to move from one country to another in an easy way. And most of the times, is governments holding back. It's not so much the federations, really, and that's a problem that is difficult to fix.
Okay, now I have here a lot of questions. I will stop my inputs so you can answer. One of the questions or two of the questions are putting the both in one is, should there be different careers between young coaches, performance coaches, or young athletes and performance athletes? Should there be two careers, one careers? But because again, and someone written this here, as I told before, on the bottom, everybody is volunteer. Everybody wants to go to the top, not because they like more the top, but because at the top you get the money and here not. So should we deal with two different careers or not? What do you think about this, Lorraine?
If I try to understand the question, I think it's about being paid or not being paid and whether they should be treated differently. Is that right?
Yes, and the career, because for example, here in Portugal, you have level 1, 2, 3, and 4
yes.
For everybody. And for example, in Netherlands, you have 1, 2, 3, and level 4 for high performance, 1, 2, 3, 4 for young.
Yeah. So yes, well, we have a majority of community coaches, and we know that most of our community coaches are volunteers, and usually they're mothers and fathers who spend about 5 years coaching, and they coach their sons or their daughters' teams, and those are our volunteer coaches. So for those individuals, we have very specific training that supports them in a club environment that has the right technical director supporting the club, so that the coach is able to coach in the right way for that 5-year volunteer role. As it relates to the paid coaching stream, we still have a lot of the same educational requirements, whether they're coaching at a provincial, a national, or international. And we know that depending on the sport, they could be a volunteer. So in Canada, for instance, our head coach for archery is a volunteer, versus our development coach in swimming is paid incredibly well, or in ice hockey. So it's not easy to separate it by volunteer or not volunteer. It's more about the performance level that the coach is working within. And even there, we can't control if they're volunteer or if they're paid, significantly well and make a great living at it.
Sergio?
Yeah, I think there is a difference really between youth coaches and high performance coaches, and because basically you need different knowledge and different ways of interacting with people depending on on the stage of development, their age, and what their motivation is to be there in the first place. Okay, so I think there is a call for customizing coach education a little bit. Now, again, that's a big problem because many federations or governing bodies don't have the resources to offer that customized provision. I mean, the example that Lorraine gave is terrific, but this is Canada, and they've been doing it for 40 years, okay? And they have that diverse offer for different types of coaches, working with different types of people. But I think we have to make steps towards that, because if I look, for example, at the example you gave of Portugal, so at a level 1, you are doing 72 hours, okay? Now, as a first step into the coaching ladder for a parent or someone that finds themselves having to coach, that's a big commitment, 72 hours, okay? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying
Yes.
it is a big commitment, okay? So what we're seeing in more and more countries is finding ways to have a previous step where we can get people to take their first steps into coaching without having to commit 72 hours of their time and a lot of money as well. And that's not to devaluate coach education. It's the opposite. It's to make more people get to that point, but in different steps, in smaller steps. And that, I think that applies particularly to people working with children, because very few people that work with children are remunerated. Most of them are volunteers. Most of them are parents or teachers, and we have to find ways to do two things, really: to encourage them to come into coaching and to stay there, and to actually give them the coach education they need, because those people don't need to know all the X's and O's of the sport. They need to know about children, and they need to know about coaching, but they don't need to know the 4-4-2 or the offside trap or the 1-3-1 zone in basketball. They don't need that, okay? And that's not what they get from the courses normally. And that's where I Coach Kids came from. And for everybody that doesn't know I Coach Kids, you can go on our website, icoachkids.eu, and that's what we're trying to do there, where we are providing that information for children and youth coaches that tends to be missing from coach education. So again, every country and every sport will have to find a solution for themselves. But the tendency is to more and more give people what they need, not to give everybody the same thing.
Okay. No, thank you, Sergio. I was looking to the question because now they are starting the very difficult questions for you. And I will have a last question that's, again, a very difficult question, and it's for our 3, and this will be the last question. But here, quick questions. How to adapt or educate different coaches and their personalities in order to enhance their social intervention with the athletes. So this could be a webinar, but okay, Lorraine, now I give the floor to Sergio, so you have time to sing a little.
So Pedro, the question is, how do we get coaches to be better at to call it something, the emotional intelligence, and how do we account for different personalities?
Yes, because in the end they must have a social intervention with athletes. They have different personalities, different emotion and so ever, but at the end they must give it was a question before about the code of conduct that we discussed before. Go.
I'm just making the most of my own emotional intelligence. My dog is just coming to the room and he's looking at me. What are you doing without looking at me? What's that? Who are you talking to? But I think for me, we need to spend more time on this element on coaching courses, really, because normally, as I said before, really, we tend to focus the delivery on understanding the sport. And we do very little in terms of understanding the participants and very, very, even less in terms of understanding myself as a coach. Okay, so we need to give coaches time to do that. And my opinion is, because I do that a lot, really, both for myself but also for other coaches. Once you put people in a space when they have time to do this, the response tends to be quite positive, because they very quickly realize the value of it, and how they are supporting the children or the participants in a much better way. So it's a self-feeding element, but we need to give them time. And we can't preach at people. We can't tell them you're doing it wrong. It's more about, tell me what you're doing, okay, and give them time to analyze if what they're doing is working from an emotional, social, relational point of view, and then start a conversation.
Okay, Lorraine.
Yeah, I think this is a huge area, and I just go back to my slide about relationships and emotional intelligence. That's a big priority and a big shift, not just in coaching, but in any leadership function. I do think that, we do try within the National Coaching Certification Program to talk about coaching and leading effectively, terms of positive imaging, in terms of communication tools and styles, in terms of feedback and improving communication. We're also working through what we call in our what is called transformational coaching, and you can look up transformational leadership. Very big in industry for a long time, and it's really about what we would call the 4 C's, which is the competence, the confidence, the connection, and the character, and instilling those 4 C's in how we work with our athletes beyond the technical and the tactical. So the question is an important one, and it is an area that we absolutely need to address in the development of our coaches, so they can address it in the development of participants and athletes.
And Pedro, I will speak about this tomorrow, but this is not an area that is only important for coaches working with children or working with recreational participants. It's even more important for the elite coach, okay? And in all the research that we've done, that's kind of the defining element or the separating element between the good coach and the great coach. Everybody knows the sport and everybody knows the physiology and all that. It's the coaches that can actually interact with people in the best way that over time become more successful. So important for everybody.
Okay, Lorraine, here is a direct question to you, but Sergio can also answer this. Lorraine, do you feel difference between coaching now than 10 years ago?
Yes. I could tell you that I feel differently about being a CEO 10 years ago than I do now. It's not a command and control situation. It is absolutely about how you inspire, how you engage individuals in decision making, how you create ownership, how you create a sense of community, the need for transparency in working with athletes and coaches. It has absolutely changed from the previous stone face, don't let them see your emotions coach or CEO, to the I care, I can be vulnerable, I want to be transparent, I want to help you grow as you help me to grow. So yes, there's a difference, and it's across the board.
Okay, do you want to say something? How was Sergio as a basketball coach 10 years ago?
Oh God, I don't want to go there.
Okay, don't tell us.
Very different, both at a personal level, but also in general. I think we've moved massively away from, Henry mentioned it before, from the command style. We recognize that coaching is not something that you do to someone. Coaching is something that you do together. It's a partnership. And as a coach, you are there. Really, the main question you should always be asking yourself as a coach is, what do I need to do now to help this person the most? And remove all ego and all personal needs. I'm not saying that everybody's doing that, but we've made massive improvements towards that, and it's become much more part of the common language of coaches and sport. So it's no longer alien. It's not like Guardiola is now the only one that does it. Great coaches are really recognized for their ability to empathize with people, to support individuals in a particular way. I think we've changed a lot.
Okay. Okay. My final question, it's for S3, and then I will give you the floor for your final statement. So the question is, what are the biggest obstacles that you face to develop your work in your country? So Sergio, what are your biggest obstacles?
Biggest obstacles. That's a great question. Because I mean, we work across countries. So if you want, I can give you two answers really. One very quickly about my work as a basketball coach, okay, and as a coach developer within the basketball structure, okay. And the biggest obstacle really, and we are removing those, is the lack of time together between people where we can learn from each other. And I think we are learning at this point, and unfortunately we're learning this the hard way through this pandemic, that we're a lot closer than we think. And for example, in England, there is now a group of 40 or 50 basketball coaches that are having webinars pretty much every 2 or 3 days, where one of them takes the lead and explores a topic. So I think bringing people together is the problem that we had, and we are fixing that a little bit. At an international level, the main problem is trying to get everybody aligned along the same lines. So even if it's not the same in every country, at least they can talk to each other because there's enough similarities and enough common points. That's the biggest challenge. But that's what we do with our frameworks. Really, we try to create that common ground for everybody.
Okay, Lorraine.
I would just add to Sergio's point is absolutely accurate. I think the other thing that I would just touch on is the biggest challenge is making sure our coaches, our coach developers, our administrators have positive experiences, because having a positive experience is what keeps you engaged. It's what keeps you motivated. It's what keeps you coaching. And I think sometimes the threat to keeping our coaching workforce is, the burnout and maybe not enjoying as much all the facets of coaching. And so we really do try to think about how the training and education equips the coaches to have a positive experience and then keeps them in coaching. How we work within the system with parents and participants and athletes to have a positive experience, because ultimately we have so many choices of where our people can go, whether it's e-gaming or otherwise. And really the key ingredient in sport is creating a positive experience that makes people want to keep coming back.
Okay. Well, in Portugal, I would say we need better social recognition, because I think when in Portugal the profession of coaching will be more recognized by all of the society, coaches will not earn 50 euros and will earn 500 euros. So if I pay to the mathematic teacher who helps my daughter, and I pay her 15 euros an hour, and the coach is maybe earning €1 an hour. So it is impossible to be professional like this. And at the end, like you said, Lorraine, we need that the parents look to the coaches and say, okay, football, it's not only kicking a ball, it's much more than this. And I think we are better, but there is a big way that we need to go. And I would say in Portugal, this is the biggest obstacle. Okay, finally, we are 1 minute after 7, so we need to close for respect for the people. But I would like to give the opportunity before I say my last words very quick, but giving Sergio and Lorraine a last sentence or something that you wanted to say and you didn't have the opportunity. So first, a great man like Sergio, I give you the floor.
Nothing to add, really. Just a big thank you to all of you for having us. A big thank you to all the coaches that connected. And I will see you tomorrow for my second session tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, and to the big woman, Lorraine.
Obrigada.
Okay, great. So we received an email just now, or a message, I say, from John Bales, from the president of ICC, who is giving to you his compliments, and he is pleased to see the webinar. So thank you, John, to taking some time. Yes, next, I have Portugal. And I finish here. Okay, Canada. I finished now our conversation. I invite you all coaches who are hearing us and seeing us live in Facebook and YouTube and here in Zoom to come tomorrow for our second day, starting at 4 o'clock like today. Thank you for everything, and thank you both again for your great job as a lecturer and your job in your countries and in your organizations. So see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye to all.
Bye.
Pronto.